Now I want to bring in Scripps News national security correspondent Sasha Ingber and attorney Andrew Lieb, somebody who has been with us before on Scripps News Tonight. Sasha, I want to start with you. There was a lot of sensitive information at play here. I've read that the DOJ's counterintelligence chief was at the arraignment today, which isn't insignificant. Looking ahead, how might we see this case work around classified documents that are central to this indictment?
Christian, that's a really good question, and I'm happy to go back to it, but because we just heard Trump speak, I want to accentuate the fact that there were some falsities in his remarks. I think it's important because most people don't know about the Espionage Act of 1917. One of the things that the former president did here was he alluded to the fact that this was about spying, about espionage. But it's important to note that there is also a section 793E. This deals with the willful retention of national defense information. That is a term, NDI. Now, the president also said that he has unconstrained authority to declassify records. But that is just simply not true. For example, there are documents in the indictment that say formerly restricted data. This means that they were previously classified through the Atomic Energy Act, and they are related to the military's use of atomic weapons. Well, the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense would typically declassify this. So even if Trump were president, this would not fall into his purview in most circumstances. We also know that according to this indictment, as Haley had pointed out earlier, there was the audio transcript which laid out the fact that he said that he had not declassified a document that had to do with plans, potential war plans on Iran. This is not something that is hard to understand here. You don't just declassify documents by thinking about it. There is a process. There is a legally mandated declassification process here. So I just wanted to get started with that tonight with you.
And Andrew, this question is for you. Of course, we know that we couldn't see that the biggest moment of the day, that was the arraignment. No cameras were allowed in the courtroom, but we did get a sketch. And we do know what happened thanks to some diligent reporting from those who were able to watch. The former president pled not guilty on 37 charges. So the question now is to you, what is next after this?
You see, the president didn't actually even do the playing. His defense attorney, Todd Blanche, said, "We most certainly enter a plea of not guilty." President Trump said absolutely nothing. We're told that his arms were crossed most of the time, and it was a 47-minute arraignment, and he just really said nothing besides whispering to his attorney. What's next is we have about a year of discovery, as we learned today. That's what they're expecting, how much time's going on. What is discovery? It's when you exchange information. You see, the defense counsels have a right to see what the people are going to prove, what the prosecutors are going to prove, the DOJ. They get a chance to see all the evidence, but they don't just get to see it. They get to make arguments, and those are arguments like this should be suppressed, or the argument like we were just hearing from Sasha about the situation as to the Espionage Act. Trump could say, hey, this is a Presidential Records Act, and then the judge could rule, hey, the Espionage Act is from 1917 and the Presidential Records Act is 1978, and in fact the Espionage Act doesn't even say classification in it, and say your argument for suppression's nonsense. Or Judge Eileen Cannon could rule with Trump, and then we're going to end up in an appeal. So to really answer your question, what's next? They're going to give information. There's going to be applications to suppress and dismiss. And if Cannon remains the judge, we're expecting a lot of those to go to the 11th Circuit because they're going to be appealed.
Folks, I want to let you know that we are still monitoring the former president's speech, and we will make sure to bring you comments from that speech later on in this show. Andrew, I want to come back to you. The strength of the prosecution's case here really depends on who you're talking to, but Trump's team still has a job to do. How might they go about defending the former president? I almost feel like we heard maybe a preview of some of that defense in his speech tonight. How might they go about defending him?
I thought the speech tonight was kind of interesting for Trump. Usually he speaks in a very palatable, a very easy to understand fashion. And I think that's been his
Okay, should I go for the old question?
Trick and trade. The reason why he got elected is people get him and they understand him. But you see what Trump did is he tried to sound like a lawyer tonight without being a lawyer. And he made a lot of missteps. And as you're all pointing out, all the errors. What I'm thinking is that their main goal, and I hope Todd Blanche could do this if he's going to represent Trump, is get control of your client. What criminal defense attorney on earth would want your client going and making a speech like he did tonight and saying crazy stuff? And I have to tell you, when I say crazy stuff, we know that Walt Nada is not supposed to be talking to him about the case. What does Trump do directly after he leaves court? He goes and have lunch with Walt. So it's just a bad look from the beginning. So step one, defense attorneys, they got to select them, and then they got to take charge. This can't be a political show. It has to be a criminal defense show. Step number two is examine the evidence, see how they got it. And Trump's right when he goes to the Fourth Amendment. He talks about searches and seizures. If something's improperly obtained, suppression, suppression, suppression. We're not going to know what's going on until we start seeing some motions and see how Eileen Cannon rules, if she's fair and impartial, or if the prosecutors are going to seek a recusal. I think that's what might be next.
And Sasha, I want to go back to you as our national security expert. When this jury is finally selected and seated, how is it that they decide what they can and cannot hear? Trump, we know, had documents that detailed military activity, perhaps capabilities, nuclear secrets. It's not the stuff that you want in the hands of just any old person off the street.
Andrew, this is really a combination of what the U.S. government, the Justice Department, and the intelligence agencies are deciding, also what the defense is going to argue, and also decisions that the judge makes. Part of the Classified Procedures, Information Procedures Act, CIPA, is going to be really relevant here. We might see what's called in-camera and ex parte procedures, meaning that in camera, the prosecutors are making arguments and presenting filings in front of the judge without the public present. Ex parte means presenting information to the judge without the defense present. And the jurors, by being virtue of being jurors, they will have access to classified information. So once it's set out what can be shared, this information, despite the fact that it's classified, that it's sensitive, those jurors will still have a mechanism to have video played to them, audio played to them, information that they get to read, so that the public and onlookers in the gallery press will not have a chance to be exposed to them too. This is a rule called silent witness, and there could also be other processes at play here, including the substitution of the classified document and its contents to a summary of what that classified document is all about. So there are different techniques here. The Justice Department is certainly used to this kind of litigation. The only difference is that it usually and never has involved a former president.
Yeah. Sasha Ingber and attorney Andrew Lieb, thank you so much. We're just hearing that former President Trump just wrapped up his speech. Folks are still there in Bedminster, New Jersey. Still ahead, folks, 2024.